What's up? Oh fuck. It's hot. It's hot. So today I want to get more in depth, I say, with the cognitive function stuff. In the last video I talked about 4 styles of information, right? The thinking, the feeling, the sensing, the intuition. You remember that. I know you do. This time I kind of want to talk about extroversion and introversion. So just to clarify, introversion and extroversion apply themselves to those 4 information styles that we mentioned in the last video, thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition, in such a way where a personality would have introverted or extroverted thinking, introverted or extroverted feeling, introverted or extroverted sensing, or introverted or extroverted intuition. The properties of introversion and extroversion are what we're going to be talking about in this video. So, what the fuck is it, Nigel? Great question. These also are words that have sourced themselves from Carl Jung. Nowadays, we usually think of extroversion and introversion like social and cool versus awkward and weird, self-isolating. That's not necessarily wrong. I think it gets at a vibe, right? You know a vibe. Yeah, it gets at a vibe. But it's not a real clear sense of what extroversion and introversion is. Like what the fuck is it, right? A good analogy that I thought about, or that dawned on me recently actually, to kind of get at the difference between extroversion and introversion in essence. So in every category, we'll get into that's complicated, I'm sorry. We'll start from a simple explanation and try to build out a intuition for, or a natural sense of what extroversion and introversion is. You can think of extroversion, export, extro, it's outward, a outward movement of psychic energy. Jung and his goons called it libido, Freud and all that, you know. It's a psychic energy going outward, while introversion is psychic energy going inward. But what does that mean, right? Let me put this shit down. I need both hands for this. When we're talking about energy going outward, it's kind of hard to grasp what that is or what that means, because for a lot of us, we don't perceive any part of ourselves, psychic energy wise, psychically moving out or moving anywhere really, right? It's hard to tell what the difference is, even though you kind of feel like you're getting like a picture. There's a higher resolution than psychic energy moving outward, you know? So here's the analogy that I came up with. Extroversion and introversion are kind of like how we experience sight versus how we experience sound. And I mean that in isolation. Let's say you're to separate the senses of sight and sound into 2 separate things, right? The visual world is static. By that, I don't mean that it doesn't change. I know that's literally what like static means, right? Like it doesn't change. Anyway, by that I mean that if something is there visually, then it's there. And if it's not there, it's not there. It is a decisive kind of information. Let's say, for example, actually, let's slow down for a second. I need to check my notes. Okay? Did I mention that I have notes now? I'm solving problems here, okay? Good. Okay, so when we're thinking about the visual world, there is a sense that objects, well, one, they don't overlap each other. There can be 2 objects in the same position. Things are distinct, they're separate from each other. On top of that, you are able to tell that something is definitely there or definitely not there. When you are seeing something, you are essentially confirming its existence through your perception of it. Things don't pop in and out of existence visually. Part of that is because we have a sense of object permanence, a sense that if we can't see something, peekaboo bitch, that doesn't mean that it's not there. It's there, but we just can't see it right now. Let's imagine a situation where something flies across your blind spot. Yes, something comes from your blind spot into your visual range and out of your blind spot. Fast, right? It's an unknown object flying across your range of sight, right? In that situation, an unknown object is moving across a known space or interrupting the signal that was previous there. It's overlapping what was once confirmed into not confirmed. It attracts my attention because it is the only unknown in this perceptive field. I want to know visually what I can't see. How does this relate to extroversion? Once you see the thing, it's a 1. Think of binary code. It's a 1. It's true. Seeing something, seeing a data point equals true. Anything that you don't see equals false. And so the process of expanding one's knowledge of the visual landscape is a process of turning zeros, things that you haven't seen, into ones, things that you have. And once they're ones, then you can put it in your mind as, oh, 1. Object permanent. The object is permanent. And it stays. Static. So you could think of extroversion as this process. And I think it's good to compare it to the analogy for the introverted. So with introversion, I said that it was auditory, audio. You can't stop hearing audio. You can't just turn off your ears. So you're always receptive, in a position of receiving impressions when it comes to audio. And not just from a particular direction, but everywhere, right? Any sound that can make it to you is getting picked up. Sounds don't have boundaries in the same way that a physical, visual experience has boundaries. Sound is frequency, vibration, waves. It overlaps, and if you can't see two distinct things, you can't build a spatial sense in the same way you can visually of what is happening. But you can build a sense of what's happening with your relationship to the sensations you have. What do I mean? What do I mean, Nigel? Give me a second to figure out what the fuck I mean. Every sound is a representation of events taking place, change occurring. If things are silent, it is perceived that nothing is moving, right? Nothing is changing. If you hear random sounds in the night, something is happening. It's not like you know what it is, but you perceive a sense that things are changing. And that's another property of sound. The awareness that as soon as you perceive it, events are occurring. The reason why sound works is because we have an ability to find a 0 point to rest at in relation to the other sounds that we hear. If you're in your room, maybe you have a fan running, or cars are running outside or driving outside, you don't notice those sounds. They kind of become the background. They become part of the silence of the space that you're in right now. But if, let's say you're sitting in your house and you randomly hear the sound of like a foot creaking, but you live alone, your first response is to silence yourself. Silence the volume of the entire space to distinct the relationship between you and the sound you just heard, the footsteps. With audio, 0 is the background. 0 as in silence, null, void is the background that we perceive. One, things, sounds, events that exist. With visual, one is the background, and zeros are the things that interrupt or intercept that background. What does that mean for extroversion and introversion? Introversion, when it comes to its relationship with objects, it is personal, relative to the individual. The relationship is always happening. There is no boundaries around the relationship, if that makes sense. There is no boundaries around the relationship. So you need to silence the environment, silence noise from your measurement or your relationship with particular aspects of your world. With extroversion, you are trying to get a sweeping one. So extroverted functions are trying to find the zeros and turn them into ones. That's it. They're not precise with definitions or about what they mean or what they mean personally. Because with objects on the outside, you and that object have a object-to-object relationship, thing-to-thing relationship. So extroversion is this outward interaction in the moment with an object, as an object oneself. With introversion, objects cease to have boundaries and begin to have just a relationship with the subject based solely on frequency. It is depth. The image in my mind is like a line, but I'd say depth like a well. At the very bottom of the well, the still, what's that phrase? Still waters run deep. Still waters run deep, as in you can perceive more when you attach yourself to less. Yes, you gain a deeper awareness of all the information in your environment and its relationship to you. When do you notice it more? When do you notice it less? It's not about the object, but it's about your experience of the object. You embody that which experiences change, and you embody that which experiences time. Cut, uncut. I think that's it for now. Yes, I think the right thing to do would be that to cut this off right now, actually. I will talk more about these, in particular how introversion and extroversion interact with the information styles that we talked about, those 4 information styles, and on like I guess a step up from that, how introverted perception versus extroverted perception differ, and introverted judgment differs from extroverted judgment. Those 4 categories are going to be the building blocks, let's say, of where we actually start to see behaviors and I guess operations that we are familiar with, where you can start to measure, start to observe, start to do some research. Anyway, that's it. Is it though?